Welcome to What's Your Baseline Shorts.
In this series, we're distilling down our usual long-form content from the What's Your Baseline podcast into a more concentrated and visual form.
Right, but most importantly, this is a brief, focused discussion about a key topic in architecture, process, business, change, and so much more.
One topic, one session, one take. That's What's Your Baseline Shorts.
My name is Roland Voltz, and today I'm joined by my co-host, J.M. Merlinson.
Hey, J.M., how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Roland. It is just about the holidays, and it felt time for us to do a little bit of a holiday special on What's Your Baseline Shorts.
It's incredible,
How's that
isn't
sound?
it? You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And by the way, as you know, we just released our last episode of season 3 a couple of days ago. So hey, no, don't be sad. We got more to come in the next year. We already had a conversation with the first guest for season 4. Speaking of which, we do have a guest today as well. And for you guys who watch this on YouTube, you actually have seen where we have a third person here. So welcome, Jeremy, to our little show here.
Hello. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here. I mean, partially, people wouldn't necessarily know unless they'd read our show notes. Quick pitch for whatyourbaseline.com/podcast/ all of our transcripts and show notes. But of course, you are credited as all of the music behind what you hear in the musical interludes, the intro, the outros. They're all originals by you. So thank you so much for giving us all of your amazing music this whole time.
My pleasure.
So we felt it was a good idea to bring you on, introduce you a little bit to our audience, and give you an opportunity to talk about who you are, what you do. I mean, a different side of things. Maybe this isn't the same business process and enterprise architecture focused podcast you're used to, but this is a holiday special. So an opportunity to do something a little different for the fun of it for the holiday season. So first and foremost, tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. What have you done in the past? Where did you come from to get to the point where you're making music now?
Sure, yeah. My name is Jeremy Voltz. I'm an indie soul artist based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Originally from the States, I moved up here to the Great White North for grad school in mathematics, which I finished my PhD in 2016. I hated it by the end. And so when I finished, I told myself, like, hey, I'm going to do music for a year and see how that goes. And if at the end of the year feels like this can be a career, I will do another year, and so on. And I've been doing music ever since. I haven't looked back. So
how did it go? The fact that you continued your musical career is one thing, but obviously, how did it go?
It has been going really well. 2018, I think I released my first album and got a publisher, and then a song from that album sort of like blew up, and it just crossed 2 million streams on Spotify, which is awesome. I just won Album of the Year at the Ontario Folk Music Awards, which was huge.
Congratulations!
Thank you. A really big surprise. So things are really going well, and I'm working on new music for 2023. So it's pretty great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you actually get into music? What's the spur that brought you into that performing arts? Because I know music and math are often quite connected, but obviously something had to tickle your fancy to get you into that as a potential career option.
Yeah, it started in high school. I joined like marching band because my entire family did marching band. I'm from the States. Marching band's a thing there. And I started on clarinet. I hated it. I wanted to break it over my knee. But then the guy playing drums in the band was moving away, and they were like, we need a drummer. And I was like, I will do anything but clarinet. Please let me try drums. And then I fell in love. My parents bought me a drum set. I became obsessed with drumming. I wanted to be like a studio drummer, session drummer. And then I discovered Jeff Buckley at some point in high school, who is like this incredible, if you don't know him, he's like kind of a 90s grunge, but sort of jazz influenced male singer. He's like my favorite male voice. And like, I became obsessed with him, and I was like, I need to take singing more seriously. And that's what I did. I learned guitar because nobody wants to hear people sing and play drums. And that's been it ever since. Yeah.
That makes
Well, you've thrown
Dave
a lot
Grohl
of
really
shade.
unhappy.
So hold on. I'm hearing shade on clarinets in general and clarinet players. I'm hearing shade on people who quit the drums.
Yeah.
And people who just drum and sing.
Yeah.
So wow, man, you are
Come at
some
me.
hot takes. Hot takes today.
I'm burning bridges here. That's what we're about. Jeremy
Wow.
Voltz.
Well, that's
Burning bridges.
wonderful. And now you make music. You've got you're available on all the different platforms. I mean, we've linked to jeremyvoltzmusic.com, and obviously you've got tons on Spotify and on a lot of different places. But before we get into sort of the career side of things, we'd love to know a little bit more about you as a person. When we interview our podcast guests, we get to know them as, you know, their passions, their interests. For them, it's like, what's not work? For you, what's not music? So tell us about yourself as a human being.
Yeah, it's weird because when you do music professionally, you want to say that like, oh, my hobby is music, but it's like, no, that's my work. I'm into, what do I do? I mean, like mathematics is still a passion and teaching is still a passion. So I try to do that when I can, but it's like being a research level mathematician isn't really a hobby that you can do generally. So otherwise it's like I'm into board games and puzzles and escape rooms and things like that. And pretty into, I did like improv comedy for like 8 years and I got really into that. Sort of burned myself out, but like me and my wife were traveling all over doing festivals and stuff. It was great. It's kind of what I do.
You love the request. You're funny, right? Be funny. That's the number one thing you like to hear.
Can I tell
So
that story on here?
I mean, do it.
Okay.
We won't stop you.
JM and I were at a gig. Colin Mockery was there. JM was talking to Colin. I walked up and then JM said, "Hey, Colin, this is Jeremy. He's funny. Jeremy, be funny." In front of Colin Mockery.
For reference, Colin Mockery is a huge Canadian comedy legend, improv legend. He was on Whose Line It Is Anyway. He's just and also an incredible human being. And sure, I mean, he probably gets approached all the time by comedic people. I was repping for you in perhaps the worst possible way.
Yeah, it was awful. Thank you, JM, for that.
So there was no internship as a result of that very successful business pitch afterwards.
Yeah,
weird, you know.
We had a couple different business pitches. We got you a gig in Osaka at a random bar where they think they paid you in beer.
Yeah,
that was
tequila shots.
Tequila shots
for you and all of our friends, which was really great. Do people know about countermeasure music? JM and I sing together. Okay, JM and I sing together. That is a hobby of mine in a 13-voice jazz a cappella group. And we travel the world. We've gone to Japan a few times, in Europe, and it's awesome. So I've known this man for a long time, and he has a beautiful voice.
Oh, well, thank you.
Before he flushes and blushes too much, Jeremy, let's go to the business side of the things. You mentioned it in the beginning. I'm obviously interested in what kind of music you make, and you mentioned it. You call it indie soul, and I haven't found that in my Spotify playlist yet. So. Can you explain what that is?
Totally, yeah. So everything I do is in some way soul inspired because that was sort of like I listened to a lot of like Stevie Wonder growing up and a lot of Motown, and it's just the style I gravitated to, and especially when I was learning drums, like I really was into that kind of style of drumming. So no matter what I write, even if I'm writing something that I consider like a folk song, everybody's like, "Oh, it's got like soul." And I was like, okay, so I'm not a folk person, and like, so I'm not indie folk. I guess I'm indie soul, and but then lyrically, generally, I write music that is generally about people in my life, and it's often like the conversations I would like to have with them, but I don't have the courage to say to them to their face, so I put it in a song. That's sort of my vibe.
Yeah. So now, JM, you will hear a song about podcasting and how horribly he was treated on that, on his next album.
It's true. Although sometimes you do cross mediums. I mean, one of the things that I was so impressed with, and I'd love it if you talk a little bit on the show, is the process behind One Day at a Time. And there's a whole story around it. I'd love to hear it because I think it's really interesting for our listeners.
Thank you. Yeah. So One Day at a Time was I was approached in 2018 to write a folk album for TV and film and things like that. And One Day at a Time ended up being this acoustic folk song for my best friend who was going through a really hard time. And this was just the song I wanted to shout into her face while I shook her, to help her, which is like terrible and weird. But like, I just wanted to help so badly, and I felt like I didn't know how, and I couldn't. And so this was everything I wanted to say. And then, and it's a simple song, but it really resonated with people. And then it was used in this big animal rescue video that went like hugely viral. And then lots of people were like, "What is this song in the background?" And people sort of found it, and then the messages started sort of rolling in, and it's just done really well, and it's really propelled my career, which has been fantastic. And then last year, like, I wanted to make something to commemorate the song, and I realized like it's been a really big source of healing for people, like people dealing with alcoholism or any sort of like mourning or trauma. And I wanted something tangible that people would have. So I teamed up with this great illustrator, Julia Louise Pereira, and we made an illustrated lyric book, sort of coffee table book for it. That's it's just a really beautiful work of art. And I'm like, really, it's the thing I'm most proud of in the entire world that I've ever made. Yeah.
And I definitely think you will provide us a link that we put in the show notes, which we're happy to promote.
Yeah.
By the way, if you look for Christmas gifts for JM and I, we leave our address there as well. But to come back to the topic, so what is your process? Since we're a process podcast, at least to some part, what's your process for making music?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over the years. Now I tend to, I've always written in the shower. We all know the shower is the place for creative ideas. But I tend now to like to get away from instruments and just be able to sing melody and lyrics, because for me, it's like, if it works without an instrument, it works. You know what I mean? Like if I sing Happy Birthday to You, you don't need me playing guitar to understand that song for it to be catchy, because it's a great melody and it's good lyrics that make sense. So I try to step away and kind of finish the song that way. And then later I'll be like, okay, what are the chords that this wants to be? What do the drums want to be doing? And I find that just really like makes it cohesive. And then lyrically, like if it's about someone, and like I said, I want to sort of tell them something, I'll like open a fake email and I will write like a fake email to them of like what I'd like to say. Ooh. And then I'll step away, come back, and like take lines from it that I think are like really heavy hitting, and sort of craft the song around that.
That's an interesting process. And then maybe we talked a little bit about this in, weirdly enough, one of our process episodes. We talk about facilitation, where you take a step back. Actually, sorry, Six Sigma, you take a step back and you come back to it later, I think it was. And that new context, that new perspective helps to really center and understand what you've written. Because when you're writing it, you're a little too close to it.
Exactly.
And that space and that time, that's really cool. That's an interesting process to pass on to our listeners that they might be able to take back to their own personal lives. So
and
the next question, Roland.
Yeah, the next question is obviously, since I'm looking a little bit at our time, and this is still a shorts, which we would love to have you on a full episode, which is about an hour. But this time we're a little bit time constrained. So what's next for you?
Yeah. I have an album coming out in 2023 that is like going to change everything. It's so good. Yay. I'm so excited about it. I teamed up with a friend of mine, Oliver Charles in Montreal. He produced it, and it is like it's a different sound for me. It's really big. It's really like theatrical, and I'm super pumped. So that'll be rolling out in 2023. And then I'll be in Berlin in February, hopefully playing some shows and connecting with things for a film conference. So I'm looking forward to that.
That sounds amazing. Well, that seems like some really exciting things to come up. And to leave our friends, we're going to set up a track for you to sort of share as a thank you / happy holidays / whatever you want as a holiday track. Please set this up for us, and then I'll do a little outro and intro your music as part of it.
Love it. Yeah, this is a song I wrote a few years ago. It's called When You're Near, and it is a like not holiday song. So it's like after Christmas is done and throughout the year. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on. And folks, once again, you can find a lot more about things at jeremyvoltzmusic.com. You can go to whatsyourbaseline.com, see all the amazing tracks that he's put in every one of our shows. And we're going to see you all in the brand new year with season 4 of the What's Your Baseline podcast. But until then, friends, we're going to be taken away with When You're Near by Jeremy Voltz, and we'll see you next year.
Take the stockings down, the eggnog's gone, the loan is bound, the merriment is finished for the year. And there may not be mistletoe, a fireplace, or fresh laid snow, but every day is Christmas when you're near. When you're near, the star is shining bright atop the Christmas tree. When you're near, carolers are singing, deck the halls with glee. And I know it's not the right time of the year, but every day is Christmas when you're near. When you're near. Valentine's is on its way, 100 different ways to say I love you more than any time of year. But on that day you just might find that written on your Valentine's, every day is Christmas when you're near. When you're near, the silver bells are ringing on the chimney top. When you're near, the little drummer boy is playing Christmas pop. And I know it's not the right time of the year, but every day is Christmas when you're near. Atop the Christmas tree. When you're near, the carolers are singing, deck the halls with glee. And I know it's not the right time of the year, but every day is Christmas when you're near. Oh, I know it's not the right time of the year, but every